Welcome to So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. If you are trying to evaluate whether real estate is the right career for you, wondering whether you are doing the right things to launch into quick success, or looking for tips and tools you can use today to become a more productive agent, this is your podcast. Welcome to So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. This is season 3, Finding Inspiration, and today we are talking about strategies for succeeding in this shifting market, specifically getting back to the basics. So I'm here along with my co-host, Erica Day.
Hi there.
And we're going to be talking to you about what the basics mean and why in a market like this one, it's important to return to the basic tools and strategies that work and those at which we are most skilled in order to generate leads. So it'll be an interesting conversation because we're seeing some returns to the basics. We're seeing some things that are working, some things that maybe are different and are working. And I want to get Erica's take on this because Erica, I think you'll see, has a little bit of a different perspective on this than I do. So it might be interesting for you guys to hear where we both come from. And we'd love to hear your feedback on where you come down on this and what you think. All right, so let's start by talking about my kind of like theory on this and the way that I kind of teach my team, most of the new agents coming in. And I recently heard that success is based on a combination of skill set, mindset, and habits, which are the 3 things that we work on most on our team. And those are the areas that I'm going to talk about today. I am a creature of consistency and a creature of habit. I love and embrace systems. And although I think I'm inspirational in my message, what I'm really trying to do most of the time is get agents, specifically new agents, to adhere to the principles that have been proven to make agents successful over the years. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And a lot of that, unfortunately, rests on some basic tenets that agents, for the most part, are maybe not that great at. And so that's the struggle that I think we have as an industry at any given time is the systems and habits, even the word habit, for a lot of people who are, if you look at the DISC assessment, described as a high I, so they're influencers, they're intuitive, they're interactive, they make really good salespeople. They don't really love having to do things consistently. They don't really love systems. They don't really love the word habits would drive them nuts. In fact, they think habits is like a negative term most of the time. So what I kind of feel like I'm always kind of upping up against is I know from experience that the more systematic and the more consistent you are, the more long-term success you're going to have. But how do we kind of get that butterfly mind that is within the most successful agents for the most part to adhere to something that feels a little bit constricting? So that's one piece of it. And then the other question is there another way? So we're going to talk about that stuff today.
Right. I love this. Good. I love this.
Good. All right. So we're going to start with this sort of skill set, the basic skills you need in order to achieve success in real estate. And most of the skills that you need to be successful, I think, can be learned. I always say I can teach you the skill. What I can't teach you, the X factor, as I call it, the trustability, the likability factor, the ability to be a pretty decent communicator, the ability to put someone else's needs first, the ability to be able to deal with deferred reward, for example. And I think that the big one is self-discipline. And that's the one that I find most agents struggle with the most. And I do believe that it is the reason we see that kind of wave pattern in most agents' careers, because they're disciplined enough to get up the ramp, right? They're disciplined enough to get up the ski lift. And then the minute they start going down, they're like, oh my gosh, it's way too much work. Or I'm having so much fun going down the hill, yay! That the thought of turning around and going back up the mountain again feels like a huge lift. And that's where, when we put the systems in, we put the ski lift in, right? So you don't have to worry about climbing back up the hill. You get to get on a ski lift and go back up the hill, and it dumps you right back down the hill again. So that's what we try to kind of make easy for people. The self-discipline is when you don't have the ski lift yet. So either you're a new agent and you're trying to learn the skills you need, or maybe you're not with a team or a mentor who can like give you those things, or for whatever reason, you don't like the ski lift. Like you want to walk up that hill, or you want to run a little bit up the hill, and then you want to kind of slide down a little bit, and then you want to run, like you like that for some reason. And that's okay if you like that. Now, one of the team leaders who is a dear friend of mine and runs a mastermind group that I really enjoy being part of, her name is Shelly Killinger. Shout out to Shelly. She posted this morning on social media. She said, I'm going to post an unpopular opinion. It was a video. And she said, my unpopular opinion is that to be a successful real estate agent, you don't need to be number one. You don't need to be a top producer. You can still be a successful real estate agent without being in the top 10% or the top, quartile of your MLS. You can still count yourself as a success. And I thought, well, that's really interesting because that almost takes like the pressure off a little bit. And perhaps there are agents who don't have that like innate competitive spirit that feel like, okay, here's my goal. I'm going to set a goal. This is how much I need to make or want to make to buy that vacation home or go on a nice vacation every year or have the supplemental income that my family needs. Maybe I don't need to be the breadwinner. Maybe I don't have to be the top producer. So I thought that was kind of interesting too.
Okay, so I had that exact thought today because, and I know we talked about this on a previous podcast where I was remembering when we first met and you asked me what my goals were.
Yes.
And one of the things I said was, I just need enough to live my lifestyle. I don't need to be a top producing agent. I don't need to be like the agent. And then I changed my mind, right?
Right.
Once I started, and here's the reason why I see that you do need to be one of those people.
Okay.
Okay, how much do you want to prospect? Is really the question. This is what I've come to realize just in my first couple of years of being an agent, is if you're one of the top agents, people come to you.
That's
and
true.
If you're not, how is anyone going to know that you're there? You have to chase them. You have to call them. And I'm sorry, I don't want to be chasing people. I'd much rather they be knocking down my door. And therefore, I've now determined I do need to be one of the top agents.
Very good point. That makes a ton of sense. And you're exactly right. Until you reach that level of visibility, nobody comes to you anymore because you're just invisible to them. You're not like sitting on the top of the mountain on your throne waiting for your subjects to come in and chat with you or ask you for something. You're chasing all of them.
You just blend in with a million other agents.
You're right. So. Yep. Yeah, you're exactly right. So, I think back to the self-discipline piece, I think what I see a lot is agents coming in very hopeful with lots of the natural skills, some good work experience, natural talents, but lacking the necessary self-discipline. And that starts to show pretty early on in most agents' careers in the form of inconsistent performance and the failure to treat real estate as a job. So if you're listening to this and you are a new agent getting in and you are wondering perhaps why you're not getting into productive activity, you don't have a lead or two or transaction or two within the first maybe 60, 90 days of your career, or if you hit it lucky because you started in that gangbusters market we just came out of and now you're flatlining, there's a good possibility that you're not doing the regular activities that you need to do to be able to create that visibility and to transact, to create leads. And how do you get visible in the business? You get visible by either doing something entirely different, which I think is harder to do, but we'll talk about that, or by having transactions. That's how you get if you don't have a storefront, that becomes your storefront, right? That's where your customers come in because you have a listing. That's where you put a sign up. That's how you send your postcards around, do your social media shouting from the rooftops that you just sold a house. Then people start to notice you as somebody who's actually a career real estate agent rather than a hobbyist or a secret agent, as I like to call it.
Can I say one thing about consistency
Please.
too, is I think when you talk about consistency in real estate, it's one thing if you're like a data entry person and, okay, I'm going to be consistent. What does that mean? I need to enter my data, consistently and accurately. But in the context of real estate, consistency means so many things. There's so many things you have to be consistent with.
True.
And I think that is a harsh reality, or has been for me. There are some things I'm very consistent about. I'm great about posting on social media.
Yep.
I will do that every day till the day I die. Perfectly happy doing it, comfortable with it. I can come up with content. I like designing, the posts and stuff. But like phone calls, admittedly, I suck. I do. It's hard for me to be consistent about that because sometimes I feel like it and sometimes I do not.
It's hard. I mean, it is a hard thing. And I think that is kind of a harsh reality for a lot of agents because the one thing that you do have to be, I think there is truly one thing that you have to be consistent about to be a successful agent. And that is lead generating every single day for at least 2 hours. Super, super simple. And I'm talking about active lead generation. So active lead generation, that is phone calls, that is door knocking, that is sitting at your front desk if you've got a good flow of walk-by traffic. That is having people actually in front of you, like belly to belly out with your constituents in your neighborhood, talking to people. Anywhere that you are face-to-face or voice-to-voice with someone, that it is a two-way conversation, that it isn't you projecting at somebody either via marketing or social media posting or whatever, that's active lead generation. And that's the hard thing because for most people, it's really hard to get over that initial, ooh, I don't really like to do this. This doesn't really feel good. But if you can become that person who is consistent at only that, you will reach a decent level of success. Now, if you can also get consistent at social media afterwards, at, blowing your own horn and showing that you've done a good job, at following up with all your leads, at keeping in touch with past clients and all those other things, that's gravy, right? That's what makes you roll into real top producer status. But you can be a significant producer just via 2 solid hours of lead generation every single day. And that's why we see dual career agents even able to succeed and why we're creating a dual career program here, which most other brokerages would never do, because I have a couple of dual career agents who just by virtue of lead generating 2 hours a day, they're killing it right now. They're doing better than many of our quote unquote full-time agents. Mm-hmm. So that's where, and actually I was listening to a podcast this morning, which was a new agent sharing his secrets to success. So this guy, man, I cannot remember his name. This was on a Tom Ferry podcast, relatively new release. And it was a son of a top producer who told his son, you may not join my team. You have to go figure it out on your own. And then when you get your skills under you, and he also thought he had not enough social skills to become a real estate agent, but this guy knew, and he was scared to death to get on the phone, but, and to really interact with people at all. But because he had sort of a math brain, he knew that if he did a certain number of phone calls every day, he ran the math and he said, I know I can do it if I buckle down and do this one thing. So he spent 2 hours a day making phone calls religiously, and he did 15 million in his first year in business. Now his argument was that you don't have to phone call. He's like, if you really despise it, or you sound terrible on the phone, don't do that, but door knock. You have to figure out another way to get in front of people in a conversation. Not
what about events, like mass people?
As long as you can have conversations, yes. You can hold events. That's another thing you can do. Seminars, sponsorships, but as long as it's leading to conversations. So as long as, and this is the whole thing, as long as your numbers work. So we know that it takes 100 phone calls on average to yield 1 appointment. And it's all about the math of number of conversations to number of appointments to number of transactions. So if you can have 100 conversations in 2 hours door knocking, then the numbers work. Now you might need 5 hours of door knocking to yield 100 conversations, or 7 hours of door knocking. So you got to figure out, does it feel better to you to put more time in? It's going to make your efforts greater. Or does it feel better to do it a different way? Seminars and sponsored events, we know you don't get into in-depth conversations as much at those events. So you might need to have those events for longer or more of them in order to yield the same results. Mm-hmm. So as long as you just have to track your conversations, if you're having real estate related conversations, and remember too, some of those events are unless you're sponsoring a real estate seminar, people coming to you for things that aren't necessarily real estate related. So it's not as direct as it would be if you're door knocking or phone calling.
Sure.
So that is, really one of the things that I've figured out is those 2 hours, that's it. And the fact is that this career can be immensely lucrative and rewarding, but that's earned after the hard work is done. I always tell this story. It took me 8 years of chasing leads before I finally was like, I have so many leads coming to me, I don't need to do it anymore. But you know what? I figured this all out on my own. I didn't have a team who said to me, here is exactly what you need to do. You need to make exactly this many phone calls. Here's exactly what you need to say on the phone calls. Here's exactly how to follow up. Here's exactly the tech tools that you need to make this easy for yourself. I didn't have that. So I was making it all up as I went along. So people who are plugging into what we have access to now, it should be a much shorter horizon for them than 8 years to do this.
Right.
I think within a couple of years, you probably can get exactly what you're talking about, where you're getting leads coming to you rather than having to chase them. So if this is the career that you want, and you know the rewards that you want from this career can be immense, keep listening, because this is what we're going to talk about. So talking about skill set, how do we obtain and develop those skills? First of all, market knowledge. You've got to have the market knowledge. And that's where research comes in. That's like before you ever get on the phone, you have to know the data so that you sound like an expert when you get on the phone with somebody. So when somebody asks you how the market is, your answer is not, oh, it's really great, the inventory is really low. Your answer is, it is a strongly seller-favored market. In fact, inventory is 50% lower than it was this time last year. In our neighborhood, there are only 2 houses actively on the market. Our average sold to list price ratio is 102.3%. Our average days on the market is 12. People are like, holy cow.
Yeah.
That's impressive that you knew that.
So yes, and let me mention too that reading that on the New York Times front page, you know, that's not going to work. And that's one of the big benefits of being part of a team and actually being in the office and interacting with the team is you get to see what everyone is seeing.
Yeah. And
it's very helpful to have those conversations rather than just reading headlines or trying to, you know, accrue your own data from the MLS.
Exactly. You can do it, but you're right. Being around a team where you have people already giving you information is much more helpful.
Yeah.
And then lead generation. That is part of your basic skill set. So the basic pillars of lead generation, typically for a new agent especially, those are your sphere of influence, some kind of a geographic farm, and then an online lead generation effort of some kind. The tools, which are going to be your scripts. Those are going to be your presentations. Those are going to be consultative tools. And then those are going to be your tech tools, like a CRM or a marketing tool that can help you get the word out, or some kind of a CMA calculator tool that hopefully your team brings to you. And then knowing how to use those systems. So making sure that you have the training you need in order to utilize those tools when you're put in a position of opportunity. You also need to develop real estate expertise. This is part of that skill set. And by that, I mean, know the contract. You got to know that contract inside and out. That's one reason we do contract training here. We talk about it. We teach you how to build a contract. Be an industry expert. So to your point, Erica, surround yourself with people who are working in the industry and understand all of the nuances. I would also say make sure that you are part of the wider real estate, the national or international real estate community as well. It's a great idea to get involved in a mastermind or some kind of like a networking group that exposes you to the market outside of our market, because it's really interesting when you talk to people who are coming from other parts of the country or even people just in your neck of the woods, and you're able to say to them, you know, it's so interesting. What we're seeing here is so different than what they're seeing in, Nevada or what they're seeing in California, although California is very similar to us. So we can really, in an interesting way, talk about the wider market and understand how trends from other parts of the country either work toward the trends that we're working on or work against the trends that we're working with. Mm-hmm. And then be a resource. Anything that you might think is interesting to your client, put out there. And I'm going to brag on you for a second, because you did a social media post the other day that was incredible. Can you talk about that social media post for a second?
Renting versus, is that what you're saying? Yeah. And the only way I knew this is because I've been out showing renters so many houses lately, because Meredith had a rental listing. So we got all these leads coming in for that. And I ended up with a whole, wave of new clients. And what I'm noticing is, first of all, 5 applications on every rental. Everyone's scrambling for the same properties. And the landlords are saying, well, sorry, no pets, no smoking, 700 credit score, and, at least $100,000 income. And it's like, what, for a rental? What's happening right now? So I thought to myself, my buyers don't need a $700 or have 700 credit score. So wait a minute. So I called my lender, one of my preferred lenders, and I said, thank you, Nick Rozek. I'll just shout him out right now. And I said, is this true? Like, I'm noticing a trend. I think it might be easier to get a mortgage right now than it is to get a rental. Am I crazy, or could this be true? And he had no idea that was happening in the rental market.
So funny.
And he said, oh my God, yeah, I can work with people who have, a 600 credit score, 540 credit score. And I'm like, oh my God, I think I just realized something really important here. I mean, that's huge. And so we talked about how to talk to clients about it. And then, I put out some content about it because that's a huge message that most people are not going to realize.
Which was awesome. So tell people where to find that if they want to look at it. I'd love to go and see what you posted.
It's on TikTok, on Facebook. So if you look me up on TikTok, it's Erica Warmsmile. And on Facebook, it's Erica Day Realtor. And I posted that video everywhere.
It is such a great video. And I think it gives people information that they didn't have otherwise. It's a great way, as you're talking about sort of differentiating yourself and standing out in a different way through a medium that you enjoy and you're very talented at. That's a great example of how to do that and be a resource to your clients.
And when you can notice a trend that I haven't read that anywhere. That was purely from personal experience.
Yes. Yeah. That you're exactly right. And because we're on the front lines of it, people don't see it unless we're telling it to them. Now, that was a beautiful observation and beautifully communicated.
Thank you.
I swear I watched that and I was like, did you write a script? But I think you just delivered that prompt too, right?
Yeah.
Holy cow. Amazing. Amazing. And speaking of communication, using scripts, listening and asking great questions are also part of your skill set. Making sure that you are not ever bringing the conversation back around to you. That's something I also notice new agents kind of stumble into the habit of being like, yeah, me too. And I also did that. And it's so easy to do because I know you so want to connect with your client. But I always am I just bring them into the harsh reality of if I'm role playing and they're like, oh yeah, me too. I go, I don't care.
She literally says
I will say that. And people look at me like, what? I'm like, no, I don't. I don't care. I only care about myself. And because I want them to see, that is what's happening in the heads of their client. They really don't care. They want you to care about them.
Yeah.
They want you to love them. That's what everybody wants. You can talk about yourself later. You earn that opportunity to talk about yourself and connect with the client later on. But at the beginning, just love them because that's all that they want.
What's the channel, the station that we all listen to? WIFM, right?
Yes, exactly.
What's in it for me?
What's in it for me?
That's all anyone cares about.
That's what runs through your mind 24/7. Exactly. And, asking great questions. That's the other thing. And if you're not great at asking great questions, do some practice, do some role play, do some scripting with a mentor who can help you figure out those questions. And let me tell you, Ford is not it. I know everybody used Ford for the longest time. We've evolved. So those are not the questions to ask anymore.
Actually, on one of our previous podcasts, we went through this exercise where we did the question asking, right?
Yes.
For 2 minutes. It's a great way to build that muscle a little bit.
You're right.
It's just set a timer, and for 2 minutes, the other person you're with is not allowed to do anything but say yes or no, and you just ask questions, and you're the one keeping the conversation
going.
Fun. It's really good practice.
We should do that for the team, actually, now that I think about that. All right, another skill to develop, problem solving. And a lot of us I think, are natural problem solvers in real estate, which is great. We like to be problem solvers, and that's a great gift that we bring to other people. There are so many people who are not like us, who are sitting in their heads and they're like, what's in it for me is what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And we tell them what to do. We lay out a very clear path for them, built through our experience, and then guide them along that path, holding their hands and loving them through the whole process. And then, making sure that we are identifying and sometimes uncovering their needs, which sometimes they don't even know until we do ask those right questions and unearth the needs, and then we can fulfill their goals by understanding their needs. And then the other piece of the skill set is marketing your success, creating a brand, knowing the basics of marketing. If you don't know marketing well, that's a good thing to kind of study in your free time if you can. And if you just hate it, hire a marketing manager or somebody who can help you with your marketing, and embrace the use of social media and video. We've talked about that ad nauseum, but that is not going anywhere. People still build trust and want to get to know you and connect with you through your social media and video presence. All right, let's stop and talk about mindset for a second. Mindset, something we've talked about a ton on the podcast. We do work on it every day here in the office as a team. And I think that team support piece is one of the places that I just can't imagine being a new agent, especially in a market like this one, without the support of a team to help you with your mindset. Don't you think that'd be so hard?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just it's a tough time right now. Even we had a lender in today, who, his team was talking about the fact that, we're in a little blip right now. We're in a hard time, and it's all opportunity from here. So put your head down, do the hard work right now, which is why we're talking about this. Keep yourself optimistic, keep your mindset strong. You will get through this and you'll be way stronger for it. But making sure that you have the supports in place, a great mentor, a partner, a team member who you can talk to, because sometimes this is a lonely business and nobody really gets it, or you feel like nobody gets it except for you. And sometimes they really don't. Like, let me tell you, if you go home and try to talk to your spouse about this, they're going to be like, yeah, so sorry for your luck. I mean, they don't understand what we go through.
Yeah.
And if you can partner with or commiserate or relationship build or mastermind with another real estate agent, you will feel so fulfilled because they just get you.
Yes.
It makes such a difference.
I totally agree with that.
And reading. I mean, that's another thing that we do as a team here. You've heard us talk about the books that we love on the podcast, but reading to help keep your mind strong, to keep yourself engaged and inspired, to keep yourself exposed to new and different ideas. I think that's a big piece of what keeps us like sane and stable. Those are both relative terms for real estate agents, but in a market like this one, or any market really.
There's so many good books on mindset for sales, for real estate sales specifically, and just for being a productive person. There's a lot of really great titles.
There are so many. In fact, if you want any of our titles, we can share with you our reading curriculum. So we've got both what we call a required reading curriculum, and then anytime people read a book that they think would benefit the rest of our team, they add it to our suggested reading curriculum. So we've got probably 100 titles on there now to choose from. There's great stuff and more to come. And then again, listening. Now let's talk about habits. This goes back to the idea of self-discipline. Consistency is key. That morning routine, I think, is also very important. Okay, I'm reading a really cool book right now called When by Daniel Pink. Have you heard of this?
No, but I know Daniel Pink.
Okay, so When is one that was recommended by two of my Saturday morning call group members, also side agents and Tom Ferry agents, Alicia Soikawa and Deborah Morton. And it is all about the timing, like our sort of biologically programmed timing for things like being most efficient, making good decisions. And you are like naturally kind of wired, sometimes because of the season you're born partially, to be able to be more productive at certain times of day. It's really, really interesting. And it tells you why you should never make decisions in the afternoon. So it's cool to listen to.
Okay.
But morning routine, we all know getting up and doing that mindset, that work on your body, and then getting yourself into a place of consistency and motivation, getting the hard stuff out of the way in the morning takes care of the rest of the day. Time blocking, use of a calendar that helps with consistency, always focusing on those lead generation activities versus non-active lead gen, and making sure that you're focusing on revenue producing activities, which are like being with clients, basically. Working from an office, that's a huge one. I know everybody in COVID fell into like working from home, and some agents still feel that's the place that they work best. I find it very distracting to work at home, and I think most people do. So unless you really are good at being hyper-focused and treating real estate like a job, never getting off track, if you find yourself, walking away from your desk or stopping your calls to go change the laundry or make a meal or whatever because you're at home, things you couldn't do because you're at the office, try working from the office and see if that helps you be more productive during the day. I think you might find that you have a different result. Model a mentor. That is probably the biggest thing that comes across over and over again in everything that I read and everything that I listen to and every story of success that I hear from a top producing agent is they had a mentor who showed them the ropes and opened their eyes to things that they wouldn't have seen on their own. It's immensely helpful. Mm-hmm. And then be honest with yourself if you don't have what it takes. So this is kind of like my coming from love, but kind of harsh piece here is if you don't have the ability to be self-disciplined, to be consistent about your 2 hours of lead generation every single day, and to have the mental toughness to get through it when things get tough and to kind of bounce back in a way that feels good to you, this might not be the career for you. And you have to be honest with yourself. I would say if you have given it 60, 90 days and you have done all the things and you're not getting results, talk to a mentor and see if they can help you evaluate what might be going wrong. Or if you find yourself getting off track and not able to consistently do the things that we know works, figuring out a way to lead generate in an active state for 2 hours a day, this might not be the job for you, because that's not that much time. Like, really, that's a part-time job. If you're not able to think about the fact that you're working towards something so much bigger that you're building for yourself by just putting in that sweat equity of 2 hours a day, you might need to work for somebody who tells you what to do because you're not listening to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So talk to me about your thoughts on doing things in a different way.
Yes. So when you talk about back to basics, and I'm thinking, okay, there are two kind of conflicting messages out there with all the podcasts I listen to, everything I read, everything I'm trying to glean about how to be the best real estate agent I know how to be. There's a conflicting message about not that going back to basics is a bad thing, but kind of doing what other successful real estate agents have done versus standing out and going out on a limb and doing your own thing and being creative and trying things that no one else has ever tried, right? And that is kind of what I am pulled towards, is not doing the typical stuff, right? When I go to send out a postcard, I recreate the wheel every freaking time. Every time. Now, there's no question that takes me longer. Does it work? I don't even know if it works. I don't know what my, visibility is from my postcard. I have no idea. But it's a part I enjoy, and I like to stand out and be different. My postcard is definitely going to look different than everyone else's postcard. And look, there are lots of real estate postcards that go out in this particular neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm always thinking, okay, I'm not going to take our standard postcard and just put my name on it and send it out. I'm not comfortable doing that.
Yes.
Right? But on the other hand, those are the tried and true, that postcard has worked for you for how many years? And so I fight with myself a lot over how much to just stick with kind of what all the other realtors do and how much to really get creative. There was a book that I read recently, one of our books, and I can't remember which one it was, that talked about when you are starting to do a system, don't get creative with it. Like, do the system by the letter for a while first and get really comfortable and familiar with it and start getting your momentum before you start tweaking little things, to suit your own, style. And I was like, that's good advice. That makes sense. And I don't do that. I do not do that.
Well, I think the thing that you're doing that is consistent, though, is the postcard. Like, that's the thing. Like, that is the thing, right? So that's, if you're going to geofarm, we all know you have to send postcards. You have to send them consistently. And I am all about an agent standing out by doing it differently, though, because you don't want to be the same as everybody else. You want to do the technique that works for everybody else, but you want to jump off that postcard and be different to those people. I think you have to brand yourself. You have to differentiate yourself. That's how you catch people's eyes in a very competitive field where a lot of people kind of honestly take the lazy way out and just do the same thing everybody's always done.
Right.
So I agree with you.
This is one of the things about, you said in 60 to 90 days, if, rethink if you're not really in a groove. And I'm thinking to myself, that's a very short period of time because it takes so long to develop your brand and figure out what it is that makes you different or that you really enjoy, because there are so many aspects to this job.
There are, yeah.
There's so many different things you can pick to really, so many paths to follow.
There are, and I'm not saying develop your brand in 60 to 90 days.
No, I know.
But I'm saying really just that one thing. Lead generate consistently, actively for 2 hours a day. That's the group. And if you haven't gotten a transaction or two from that, something's wrong. Something is happening that we need to tweak or figure out what to diagnose.
Yes, I hear you. But it does help, I find, with the outreach. When you know exactly where you're coming from and where you're going with it.
Absolutely.
Right? Rather than just kind of a vague, I'm calling to see if I can get a listing here.
Absolutely.
Right? Yes. So we have a script, which is helpful, but the script is generic.
Right.
It is.
Right.
And after a while using that same script, you can start to put your own spin on it that really turns it into, like, my specialty is working with divorced people, right? So I can focus a little more on that, maybe mention that when I'm talking to people, which I wouldn't have done in the beginning because I didn't have that kind of focus.
Exactly. And I think that's where, use the script you're given at the beginning and then develop, as you're developing your who and do what, your specialization, then you bring yourself into it. And that's really when you start to gain traction, I think, is when you start to differentiate yourself.
Yes.
But
I thought that was really cool, by the way. Sorry to interrupt
oh yeah,
you.
no, go ahead.
Today at our team meeting, when everyone was introducing themselves to this lender that a lot of us were meeting for the first time, that everyone had like a little who and do what statement. It wasn't just, I've been in real estate for 5 years, on to the next, right? Yes. Everyone said, and I specialize in this, and this is what I want to do. And I was like, oh, good.
Yeah,
good
I love that. That was very, very cool. I completely agree. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else you can think of that like would differentiate or that agents should think about doing to help themselves stand out?
I do think marketing is, you're going to be marketing a house if you get a listing.
Yeah.
So I just think, and even almost everything in real estate is marketing. Even when you have a buyer, you're like marketing that buyer to a listing agent and a seller. So if you're in that marketing mindset just all the time, and like Meredith was saying, if you're not good at marketing, hire someone who is, or, do some YouTube learning about it, because it's such a crucial skill. Like, I'm so grateful right now that I have that background.
Yeah.
It's helping me immensely, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the clearer you get on your audience, the better your marketing message becomes. And I think you do have to be kind of a chameleon too, because you're right. Sometimes you're marketing yourself. Sometimes you're marketing your listing. Sometimes you're marketing your buyer to the listing agent.
Right.
But it's all kind of like basically the same package of communicating and presenting yourself in a polished, kind of streamlined way that makes you appear professional, elegant, and accessible to the person on the other side of your message.
Yes.
And kind of aligned with them as well.
One other thing that comes to mind that you used to mention to us often, and you still do actually, but I've just realized it personally, from experience now, is, Meredith would always say to us, if you get this down, you'll be so far ahead of other agents and what other agents are doing. A lot of agents are out there not specializing in anything, not being particularly highly trained in any area, unprofessional in general, not communicative, just poor communicators. There's so many things that agents are doing wrong where you can get so far ahead of the game just by not even, by showing up, by doing what you say you're going to do, by communicating everything. Caitlin was writing an offer this morning and the deadline was 12 o'clock and she was freaking out at 11:51. Like, oh my God, now I have to get them to sign it. I don't know if I'm going to get it on time. And I said, it's okay. You don't have to get it in by 12. Just call the agent and say, I have an offer on its way to you. Is 12:30 okay? Of course they're going to say yes. They want your offer, right. It's the communication, that one extra step that really makes the difference. You're and maybe you'll have an opportunity to have another conversation while you're talking to them that will get you in the door.
You are so right.
You just have to always be thinking that way.
Yeah, you're so right. You're so right. And thinking about how you're going to help your client. I mean, that's really where that all comes from. And that alone, if you stick to that, I think if you stick to two basic things, one is the lead generation 2 hours a day, I say it again, and 2 is putting your client's needs first. That's like half the battle.
Yes.
You'll become a successful agent and you'll rise to the top of the group just by those things. And then if you can, on top of it, stand out, differentiate yourself, become a great communicator, become great on social media, all the other things.
Get along well with other agents.
That helps. Yeah.
I can't believe what a problem that is sometimes.
Oh yeah. That's a constant issue in our industry.
That should not be an obstacle.
Right.
But it's real.
It's real. And what I think is great about a market like this is it gives us the opportunity to get back to these things, to propel ourselves forward by being the exceptional agents that we are and by paving a path for a beautiful future career. So that's all good. Anything else you want to add?
That was the perfect ribbon on the box right there.
All right. Yeah, I think, it's not a career for everybody, but if you do develop the right skill set, the right mindset, the right habits, and then you differentiate yourself, you will find incredible success. Yes. So we wish you all incredible success, and we are so grateful to you for listening today. We want to thank our sponsors who make this podcast possible: Peter Yanni of Home Team Mortgage, the Rozek team with Embrace Mortgage, Paul Harsani of First National Bank. Please consider reaching out to our sponsors to support those who support our industry and our title partners, Peak Settlement and Village Settlements. Please also connect with us and with them on social media and let us know what you think. Do you agree with us that getting back to the basics is working for you? And what are you doing to differentiate yourself? We would love to hear from you, and we would be so grateful for a review or rating on the platform on which you are listening. Thank you again for reaching out, all of you who have. We love hearing from you, and we will see you next time. This has been So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent.
We are so grateful you joined us today. If you've benefited from the advice we share on the show, we hope you'll tune in to our next episode. Interested in learning more about my personal mentoring programs, our Career Kickstart course, or to pick up a copy of my book, Farming for Real Estate Agents, your step-by-step guide for becoming the go-to agent in your local market? Visit www.meredithvogel.com and click the Resources tab. If you are curious about becoming part of the List Realty family of agents, go to the www.thelistrealty.com website and click Careers from the About Us page, or find me at the Meredith Vogel team on social media. Thank you for listening. This has been So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. We'll see you next time.